In this episode of Viral Rewind, we're going to look at the Kuku DOS virus. Now, there's only one variant of this virus for DOS, and that's the 448 variant. And that's going to be relevant to its infection size, which is we're going to look at a little bit later. And unlike most DOS viruses, Kuku is a non-memory resident file infector. So it has to run to infect a file. It does not terminate and stay resident, or TSR, as most other viruses are. So it's not going to reside in memory after we run it the first time and infect files. We actually have to run an instance of an infected file with Kuku to infect other files. And as I just said, it's a .com file infector, so it's only going to infect .coms. It's going to leave the .exe files alone. So what we've got there is our temp DOS directory. It's full of .com files, including Kuku44, which is the 448 Kuku virus, in there as well. And if we run that, so it loads up the infected Kuku program. There's a little bit of disk activity, and it returns us back to DOS. So what Kuku does there when we run it is it takes one .com file out of the current directory and infects it with the Kuku virus code. So the file size will go up by 448 bytes, again because this is the only variant of Kuku that's 448. And it will also search out command.com if it can, and will also infect command.com on its own. So we run it once, let's run it again, and again, and again. So, okay, that's 5 files in the directory that have been infected. So, alright, let's do it a couple more times. 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, we've infected 5 more files. Taking another look here. Okay, yes, I do see some files that got infected with Kuku. Look at some files here, just out of curiosity. Run Kuku some more. Now, because Kuku is a direct file infector of .com files, there's an interesting thing with Kuku in that it has essentially 2 different methods of infection. And one of the latter part of the infection depends on the condition of the first infection. So what it's doing right now is it's searching out .com files in the current directory to infect. But the second part of the infection is if Kuku discovers that there is no more uninfected .com files in the current directory that Kuku is running in, it's then going to change its infection routine and then start infecting the infected .com files with a trojan. So instead of just adding the viral code, it's now going to completely overwrite the original .com program and put a trojan on it instead, and that's going to trigger the Kuku's payload, which is what the virus is named after. We'll see that when we get to it. So let's keep running Kuku some more and just fill up that directory. Okay. So I'm noticing from the disk activity that I think every file has been infected with Kuku. Let's see. Yeah, it kind of looks that way. So what Kuku, I think, is doing now, because I'm noticing the infection of Kuku is taking a little bit longer, is it's now beginning to overwrite .com programs with the Kuku Trojan, which again is going to trigger the Kuku payload when we run that. And again, because it's overwriting it, it's now destroying the original program that's contained in those .com files. So now I'm going to start going through the .coms and see if we can find one of them that has the Kuku Trojan overwritten on it. that one. That one. Let's see. Could use command.com. Let's see. Print. Oh, crap. Well, I crashed EMM386. Let me reset the computer and get back to where we were. So I've got the computer restarted here, and I made some changes to the startup because command.com was infected by Kuku, not allowing it to boot. So I had the PS1 here just load up from its ROM version of DOS instead of trying to use the hard disk's version. That way we bypass that infected command.com. So I'm going to try to run programs again here. See if we can trigger that Kuku trojan that I mentioned, so we can see Kuku's other payload that it shows. That didn't come up at all. If not, I will just run the Kuku virus until it overwrites itself with the trojan, and then we'll see it that way. So, there we are. So command.com there in the folder has the Kuku trojan, and this is Kuku's payload that it's named after. So, as you can see what it's doing here, it's filling up the screen with colorful messages that have Kuku with an exclamation mark, and some of them are flashing like the cursor does, other ones are static. And as the computer sits here, the screen will just fill up with all these colorful Kuku words. And because of this, again, this is the second infection part of Kuku I was talking about, where the first time it infects command.com and other files to spread Kuku around, and then once every .com file in the directory is infected with Kuku, then as the code continues to run, it starts overwriting those .com files that were previously infected with this payload trojan that we're seeing here. And in the case of this, the command.com got overwritten with the trojan, and because of that, command.com no longer works at all now. It's been completely overwritten, so every time command.com in the folder here is loaded, it loads this Kuku payload we're seeing. So Kuku is potentially destructive if it overwrites the original .com file with this trojan. Otherwise, you could potentially clean the infected file from Kuku, but really the best thing is just simply to delete the infected file and put a clean copy on anyway. So, computer's completely full of Kukus. Can't break out of it. No keyboard inputs. So the only thing that works is ctrl-alt-del. You can restart the computer. And again, because command.com is infected, if you restart the computer, in the case of this, it won't boot, or if command.com that it was using, see, this is command.com in the temp DOS folder, but if it was using the regular one that's also corrupted potentially like this, it would always run this Kuku trojan every time your computer loaded the infected command.com up at startup. So that is pretty much it for the Kuku 448 DOS virus.